So today, let's talk about piriformis because I think a lot of people they have piriformis problem. They have a tight glute, and they're always trying to just stretch it, stretch it, stretch it. It
Mm.
doesn't matter what they do or how long they've been doing all those patient for stretches. They can't seem to get long-term relief. So I want to talk a little bit more about that. So what would you want to say about, let's say, piriformis or piriformis tightness? Like, what is this? What's the cause of,
Mm.
and how can we fix it long term?
Piriformis, man. Piriformis syndrome. It's like a buzzword. It's something that I dealt with I remember when I was working at a health club. This was 25 years ago. And there was a really nice guy that I became close with. He was a physical therapist, and I was telling him some of the issues that I had dealt with then. That was 25 years ago.
Mm.
And he came back in with the one piriformis stretch, and I thought it was the most amazing thing in the world. It's the one where you put your foot over into the man's position, you're laying on your back, and you bring your other leg up. And it was immediately you could tell, like, okay, this is the guy. I mean, I think that's immediately what you think in your head is this is the problem. That thing is the problem. But I thought it was the end for me as far as pain and discomfort, and it helped. It helped a lot, but it wasn't the overall uh, piece that I needed to finish it. Right. I felt like even though I had to do a lot more of it than I needed to, and it was never really fully gone. So, um, but yeah, I mean, let's talk about the piriformis in general. Piriformis is a muscle that attaches from the sacrum to the femur. Right. That muscle gets tight and bring those two bones together. Right. So you're looking at, yep. And those two bones together compressing the whole back of that pelvis.
Yeah.
So your glutes can get tight, as you said earlier, right? It actually gets you into ER. I think a more ER. I think a lot of people that sit down, their knees tend to go out. They're in this position. They can notice they feel more comfortable out with their knees. That's the ER space that we're talking about, but it's at the detriment of losing IR space, right? So that's what we're talking about as far as the piriformis muscle and what it does. Now, what you need to understand about that piriformis muscle is that the sciatic nerve runs right through under this muscle. So if that becomes compressed, you can only imagine that it's going to imagine that's going to trigger that nerve. All right. So how do we get here? Um, Body goes in an anterior pelvic tilt, another buzzword that we talk about. That anterior pelvic tilt can be because of bad breathing technique. It could be because we cannot shift from right to left, where body has to go forward, or it could be just because we're moving forward in life, so we want to go forward. Like we talked about basketball earlier. Basketball players are told to be on their front of their feet, the balls of their feet, right? So their center of mass gets pushed forward faster than anybody. But breathing mechanics can happen there, inability to shift and ground to both sides. But eventually, what happens is our body goes so far forward that our body's got to find a way back. And that way back is usually compression of the lower pelvis. The back of the pelvis compresses and to get us in the semblance of what it feels like to get back. Now, that's not the right way to go about it. The right way to go about it would be to get our center of mass back, get back to our heels, get our hamstrings involved. But instead, usually the rectus gets involved. Other things start to compress, the lats. I mean, as time goes on, the more compression that happens, you become locked up completely.
Yeah.
So
Now,
the
I
pelvis,
actually, so like before you go any further, I want to
yep.
show people like how that actually works. So your piriformis attachment basically here in the lesser
Mhm.
trochanter femur. Now, when this muscle got compressed, it will close up this space. Now, what Michael just talked about, now because we as human beings, we all need to move forward in space, right? So we have this tendency to move our pelvis into more forward position as well, into what we call a anterior pelvic tilt. Now your body gonna sense like, well, at some point you're maybe too far forward. Now you gotta do something to push you back a little bit. So what your body gonna do? Basically squeeze your glute right here and then push underneath. Now, that's not a, that's not the right way to go backward. The right way just to bring your pelvis back to neutral, right? That would be the right way to do it, but your body can't do that naturally. So you would just basically tense up all your muscle right here and kind of push you underneath it. And that's why the tight piriformis, tight low back can come from. And if you've been stuck here for quite some time, you can't dissociate those two bones, those three bones. Well, your lower back probably gonna hurt.
And again, the sciatic nerve runs right underneath that. So you're going to pinch that, right? So two ways it can pinch it by the back of the pelvis, but it also can pinch it up in the lower back. When the lower back arches, it runs through that as well. So um, you can get a sciatic nerve pinch from either of those places.
Yeah.
So, foam rolling and stretching, I call them brief relief. They are brief relief,
Yeah.
right? And it's great. I mean, sometimes I just do it because it feels good and I need it. And it kind of, this foam rolling sometimes I think helps the brain shut things off. So there's value to those things. But overall, if those things are happening over and over and over, you're going to have to get to the root cause at some point. So, I mean,
Like,
going into what is the root cause?
yeah. So one more thing I like to say is now when you got so tied up on your posterior chain and piriformis, now if you stretch it, is absolutely cool. All right. But now you just got to consider one layer deeper. Now I think Connor said this really good. He said, stretching your foam rolling, you have this, you open up a window of opportunities, right? But if you don't do anything afterwards to make sure you can maintain this position long term, basically you're stretching for nothing.
I like the way the body senses. I love how you put that too. Like I like to do it right off the bat just to feel what the tight area is, kind of get a sense of, okay, here's my issue. And then from there, open up that space and move into that space genuinely and breathe into that. It's all about pressure, right?
Yeah,
We talk about pressures. We want to be able to get pressures in areas that we can't usually get pressure.
100%.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, for me too, it's now, okay, well, what is piriformis? What is the piriformis syndrome? What causes piriformis? We know brief relief is not going to be the end game. What is the end game? How do we fix this thing for real and for good?
yeah, absolutely.
So, center of mass has to get back. If your center of mass is forward, we got to get your center of mass back. Number one, get that anterior pelvic tilt gone. And then on top of that, we got to be able to open that space up, right? This is ER. If that space is closed, we're in external rotation of the pelvis, right? It's squeezed. It's almost like there's all that tissue back here is duct taped. So we're fine in ER, but once we have to go to IR, I can't get that thing to go into IR without space. So we got to open that to get IR in the first place. So that is the first thing that we need to do on every single human being is give them the ability to go from ER to IR. We know that walking, running, anything, you have to have ER, IR, ER. If you're skipping IR and you don't have the ability for that thing to come inward, then you have to skip that whole phase. Well, something has to take that haircut. Lower back, knee, foot, whatever it is, something has to make up and compensate because we know that this pelvis, and I'm sorry, I got the hands, you got the pelvis model, but if you can't get here, you're skipping that phase. Something has to take that haircut
Yeah,
every single time. And we wonder why we're in pain, why lower backs are in pain. That's why lower back is in pain.
yeah, absolutely. So I think Michael just said, I just want to do a demonstration real quick. We just want to open this up. That will be the first step. Once we open this up, we can train your hamstring, maybe your inner side to help your body maintain this position long term. But the first thing we're gonna do, open this up, open this up. Also, now just for we're just doing this for demonstration purpose. Now in real life, your body won't move like this. All right. So just for people to understand here.
Mm-hmm. You'll see the ilium bone too. Can you show that again? I was using my hands, but
Yeah. Yeah.
ilium bone, right? When you go push those bones in, they kind of come up and back, right?
Yeah.
That's ER. And then we go, that is IR when the ilium bone goes up and in, right? We need that space for our body to go into internal rotation. That is what we lack when our bottom of our pelvis is squished.
Yeah. 100%. So let's say right now we open up our pelvis. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I think for piriformis relief, I mean, patent stretch can work, figure four can work, but
Mm-hmm.
what we like to do will be, all four posterior capsule stretch. That really works well because you load your body weight on that side and you kind of hold
Mm-hmm.
the other leg over. So I think that one typically work the best for our client, but other
Mm-hmm.
stretches can also work as well if you
Mm-hmm.
do them properly. Now, once we open that space, what do we do next?
If you're opening that space, then you got to remember what got you there in the first place, right? We got to get our center of mass back. right? 90-90s are great for that. With a ball squeeze, I think we've already touched upon that in our YouTube videos. That's why the 90-90 ball squeeze is really, really good. It puts you in 90 degrees, which is IR related. It gets you to squeeze the ball, which opens up the back of that pelvis, and it gets you to get into IR. Um, yeah, I mean, so that's the one and done. Well, not one and done, but that's one of the first things that I start with is to be able to get them the stacked position, right? So if you're 90-90 against the wall, we're teaching lower ribs to come down so our lower back flattens out. We can do a reach, but we're getting flat, stacked, getting our center of mass, which is forward, to be able to get back. And a lot of it is, and it's funny, I was talking, I think, Reno today. It's not just about getting the heels. I think when we, I over cue so much, especially in the gym, get to your heels, get to your heels. Getting to your heels is a result of getting your center of mass back, right? So you can't just get to your heels. You can, but it won't be, you have to be able to get all of the contents that are pushed forward back. And that automatically, that's the result of getting your center of mass is getting those heels. So
Yeah.
that's getting somebody back, number one, and then a nice squeeze in that 90-90 degree. And then you're opening that pelvis up and you're breathing. You're doing all the good things, getting out of fight or flight. You're teaching the body that it's comfortable, right? Because it's not going to want to change in fight or flight. So you're getting out of fight or flight. And we're teaching it a new pattern where it's going to be more accepting to that pattern because we're out of fight or flight.
Yeah, 100%. Also, another reason why 90-90 works so well is because when you put your pelvis and your leg relatively in about 90 degrees, you basically turn your hamstring and your inner side into internal rotator muscles. And when you squeeze those muscles in that positions, you actually open up your pelvis in the right way we're looking for. It's not like, oh, just train your hamstring or train your inner side, your piriformis will be gone. No, you got to be in the right positions, and then you start training them properly.
And context to what it's going to do, right? You have to think about this all along the way. You can stretch in different positions, but that necessarily is not going to translate to walking and breathing, right? We got to be in the positions that are going to translate to two things we do the most of, walk and breathe, right? If it doesn't translate to those two things, we're going to lose it all back anyway. So,
100%.
we want the context of those two things to be a part of everything that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, would you do anything else after that, or that should be
Yeah,
it?
I usually, yeah, no, for me, I work the IR all the way up. I like standing. The hinge for me is huge. I'll start people in teaching them how to hinge first correctly, right? And
Yeah,
usually what I got to deal with there is those people have a really tight rectus, so you'll see them kind of round. So I got to get the rectus first to get relaxed, right? So I might get some breathing in that belly to relax that rectus, but get them into a hinge. You use the table walk back, which I love. I have something a little bit different at the gym. I have a walk back position that keeps your knees forward because remember the knees are going to want to come back. So I try to get the hips back naturally, keep the chest up, and what that's going to do is going to open up both sides of the pelvis a little bit, right? Enough just, and that's great at the beginning, right? You don't want to go from here to here.
yeah,
That just lock you up, right? You just want to be able to get enough to say, wow, okay, there's a stretch there, get some air in there, get your body in tune to doing something that it's never doesn't really remember anymore, right? It's got amnesia to that, right? It's got amnesia to IR and that space opening up. So I usually start there standing because I'm eventually I want to get to standing, right? And then from there, I'll do a left hip capsule stretch or a right hip capsule stretch. So now what's happening is I'm going to be able to open up one side even more, right? Versus both, if I hinge them both back, they're going to open up a little bit. But if I learn how to get them out, right? This thing's going to open up even more. Now I'm teaching them individually because that's eventually what we want to do. Most people move like a bowl, right? We want to be able to move with relative motion, which is both sides. So eventually you're going to have to say this side's got to go ER, this side's got to go IR, this side's pushing out, this side's accepting. But now I'm getting even more of a stretch on that one side. And I'm teaching how to open that up. And then, of course, close it. Right. And I think a crazy part of that is a lot of people love the glute muscle, building the glute muscle, but they don't recognize that that glute muscle is tight.
yeah,
Right. So they're only really just exercising it right here. Can you imagine if you exercise the glute muscle at its full length and full closing? Right. So when you're getting that hip capsule stretch, that turns into a single leg deadlift. Right. So you open up that space, you get into that space, you own that space, and then you come forward and you realize, okay, this is closure. Okay. This is where I was to begin with, but it's now I'm getting a posterior pelvic tilt on the way down, an anterior pelvic tilt. Like you're teaching them exactly how the body's supposed to work. And that's the patterns that you now put into your exercises, which are huge,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, there's one more thing personally I would add right before that. So now I find a lot of people, especially they have piriformis tightness or the straight like is below, let's say 30, 40 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Probably they also have a duck feet as well. So their feet is turned out and they like
Mm-hmm.
overly pronated. So I see a lot of people, right? Especially if you have duck feet and you're overly pronated, now you don't have any tibial internal rotations. If you don't have any tibial internal rotations, your femur is not going to turn, your pelvis is not going to turn, your lower back probably going to take the hit again. So now
Mm-hmm.
what I like for those people is I want to do something like, just like introductory pronation drill or Hauser pronation drill. So like just let them sense the base of their big toe, the base of first metatarsal head, and also your inner heel. And that should be it. So let them to feel the weight transfer from the backside of your heel to mid arch, feel the arch actually drop to the ground and then all the way to their big toes. Now, once they can sense that the tibial can internally rotate it, everything become way easier for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I sent you a video of me playing around with the WEX steps. I don't know if you're familiar with the WEX steps, but
Yeah, I love
just
that.
I flipped them. I'm like, instead of going uphill, like I want to feel them being able to do that. So, but yeah, it's I do it for running more for my athletes to teach them how to. I mean, think about it. Grab the ground from external rotation, get over it, anchor to it. Internal rotation propels you forward. It's just abbreviated.
Yeah.
It's an abbreviated way, but if you want to get faster, if you want to stop, all this stuff matters. Okay. We can start with back relief, but it's going to go into movement, man, running, sprinting, weightlifting, stopping, moving. I mean, everything is rotation. If once you start to recognize that everything is rotation, remember, rotation is space available. The reason why we lose rotation is because we don't have space available. If we continue to rotate the right way throughout our lives, that space is guaranteed to stay there because I wouldn't be able to do it without rotation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, when we treat our lower back pain, we don't just treat your pain in isolations because your body don't move in isolation. So why would you treat it in isolation, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
want to fix your lower back where you're tight piriformis, you got to look at your whole body as one simple unit. You got to treat it all together. You can't just treat a pain like target that painful area, right? You're not going to get any long-term relief because you didn't change the way you move. You didn't change your center line of gravity. Everything haven't changed yet. Like you just maybe just roll it out that trigger point. It doesn't do anything long term. So
Mm-hmm. And you don't train the foot. Look, the
100%.
foot's the first thing hitting that ground. If
Yeah.
those buttons aren't working, telling the hip, but they're buttons. The big ball, the little ball, and the heel are all buttons. Those buttons got to be pushed for the hip to do the right thing. If they're not pushed, the hip's going to recognize that those buttons are not available. It's going to compensate at the hip. So you have to be able to not only train that, you got to be able to teach your body to get into that pattern. That's the first part, right? That's why there's so many constraints. You're on the ground, you're constraining that person to get those feels, those senses that they're not used to having. Get them out of fight or flight, let the brain sense it, feel comfortable there, and then you got to work your way into gait, right? Can I rotate with my feet and my body into gait?
Yeah. 100%. Either anything else you want to add, like either any other step, any other exercise. I think on that point, once we do the posterior capsule stretch, once we do the 90-90, maybe a little bit left adductor pullback, and you're
Yeah, right glute max.
like you're done. You shouldn't have any piriformis problem at all at that point. Now you're probably
And
gonna have
ground people.
like
I love the grounding too.
yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
big grounding person, right? Because listen, when it comes down to it, is if you can't get to the left side of your body, you can't compress it,
oh yeah,
right?
100%.
You can only compress right side. Your left side can only expand. I got to be able to take the left side, compress it, and expand my right side. So you're like you said, adductor pullback is going to get you that grounding first, and it's an easy lead in. Grounding is going to lead to a right glute max. Flip them over, do an adductor pullback, and get them walking, man. I mean, I think important part of this whole thing is get them standing when they're done grounding, and can they sense the left foot differently? And every person that does it right will. I mean, it's not overwhelming. It's not like you get up and you walk a whole different way. you just sense. It's sensory, right? Sensory, your body needs that sensory to be able to compress to get to the one side. It's got to have that sensory. So just walking afterwards and then starting to build that up, and then getting the standing.
100%. And I think that at that point you should be completely out of piriformis problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think for a couple of weeks, maybe 2, 3 weeks, you should be all done.
Mm-hmm. For good too. Not for, like I said, you can roll and stretch. You'll be good for a day or two, but something at some point, whether you exercise or walk a lot that day, it's eventually that pattern is just going to go right back. Patterns are patterns,
Yeah,
right? I think everybody understands patterns, but they want to look away from the human patterns. Patterns are patterns for a reason. That's what the body wants to do. That's what the brain wants to do, right? So if you have a pattern, it's not going to change from a stretch. You got to change the pattern overall within the body and the whole system. And then once you change that pattern, becomes a new pattern.
yeah, 100%. So it's like, so I would tell my client this way, right? Right before you, like when you're born, you have one movement pattern. And when you go to college and when you go to work, you have a different movement pattern. Right now, your body kind of move differently now, and your body kind of tense up a little bit. You have piriformis, lower back pain, maybe hip problem, right? Now you need to change the way you move so you can actually get a long-term adaptation, long-term relief. So if you don't change the way you move, just focus on your muscle, well, you're not going to get any long-term relief because the pattern is wrong in the first place. You got to change the pattern, change the way you move, so your body, your muscle won't even feel tight in the first place. And that's how you get long-term relief.
And the one thing that I've been, and you might have contemplated this too, like, so you start from the ground, right? There's so many constraints. It's slow. It teaches you how to start that sensory
Yeah.
load. But as time gets on, you stand up, it's harder, right? Just getting up and walking is not that easy if you don't have that sensory tool to start with, right? So getting up and walking would be the next thing. But what happens when you go into exercise and you load your body with weight now?
Yeah.
Right? Can you imagine that? The intensity goes up, it's harder to control that pattern, right? So you got to build to there. And then if you're going running, say you want to go back into run, everybody says, I want to go run again, right? I mean, runners are always hurt, right? Because you're doing it now faster. The intensity is more, it's faster. Can you control that with that speed, right? So you got to do it slow, stand it up a little bit faster, move. This is not like, let's go from here 0 to 10. It's got to be build the pattern, add a little bit of speed and intensity to it as time goes on. And then that pattern stays. If you go from 0 to 10, that pattern will not stay. I cannot go from, hey, all right, I felt a adductor pullback, let's go sprint or let's go run. It's not going to stay there at that point until you build it enough to be able to handle that speed and that intensity.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went off tracks. I always do, but I figured that's something that's kind of been on my mind lately, and how and I know there's so many people that want to go back into working out or right into running. And I want them to be aware that you can change a pattern slowly, but you can't go from 0 to 10. That thing, you got to build that up.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like maybe you can be pain free in about a couple of weeks, right? Maybe 5, 7 weeks, but it's still going to be a process between pain free and you're able to run properly without pain.
Or whatever you want to do, right? If you want to be say you want to build muscle, hypertrophy, right? You're going to have to eventually put a lot of weight on something and tension on a muscle, right? Number one, I mean, hypertrophy is going to be great if you have a full muscle. We just talked about the glute, right? If the glute is tight, all you're really hitting it is in a glute state. All you're getting is tension is there. But if I open you up and now you have a muscle that lines up like this, think about how much more tension along those lines I can put. So eventually that muscle is going to get hit at a lot more tension, creating a lot more hypertrophy. Or if I'm doing something that much range and not being that efficient, you're going to get stronger. This just applies to everything down the road. Or getting faster. Do I have, people have speed. They don't have anywhere to move into. You bring them back a little bit. Now they have room to move into with some rotational torque. Right now, I'm using rotation to torque me forward. You're going to get faster. You're going to be able to stop. These things will all get better through time by just learning how to rotate. Our bodies are meant to rotate. We remove the rotation through compression. And once we lose rotation, we lose a lot of the qualities of rotational do. We're rotational human beings. We like to rotate. That's what we do. Our muscles are made for rotation. We just lose them as time goes on. Once you start arching and going forward, you lose a little rotation. Once you go back like this, you even lose more rotation. Then things start compressing even more, and you start to turn into somebody that can't move and rotate that refrigerator going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, is there anything you want to add at the end?
Yeah. I mean, I think I've said enough, Alvin.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
mean, I don't. Yeah, I mean, outside of that is, you got to find what I've been really getting people to try to understand is everybody needs a toolbox. Not everybody's exactly in the same, everybody has a little bit of something different compensation. We're all very similar in the way we go, but there are some little bit of things. Build a toolbox of things that work for you and understand there may be a time where things go off the rails and you slept wrong or you're overly stressed or you did something a little bit faster than you normally do or you weren't ready for it or you weren't cognizant of it and things may slip back into that pattern, but you'll have now a toolbox. And I think we see that with the chats now. People feel more comfortable that they're not just gonna, it's not over. Hey, I did something, I slept the wrong way yesterday, or I did something I wasn't supposed to do, and I got a little pain. They get it in their toolbox, they pull it out, they feel more confident that that thing is not going to be there forever. Because I think, again, a learned helplessness about this happens where people feel like whatever I do, whatever I've done, I've been to a PT, I've been to a physician, I've had surgery, I've done the stretching, I went to yoga, I went to Pilates, nothing works. They get that in their head where now you're starting to see people feel the difference of what we do and how we do it and realize even if there's a slip up once in a while, I have my toolbox. I go back in 10 minutes later. I feel good. That confidence now, that resets the confidence of, okay, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. I can walk. I'm not going to be out of pain.
yeah,
That's a big part of this mentally and
100%.
psychologically.
100%. And I want to share one quick win real quick. Now, I think we talk about like how to do the onboarding form from maybe a couple of weeks ago. We're gonna get
Mm-hmm.
client to what kind of step count you need to make, what kind of a shoe are recommended, your sleep routine, how to warm up before, after the gym, how to reset your day after a whole day of work. Now we've get client everything right off the bat at the beginning of the call, at the beginning of the program. I think right now all the new client, I think maybe 10, 12 client, they coming in 3, 4 weeks ago. Right now on average, they can get their pain down to 70% within the first 2, 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Just just with that and with the basic exercise we're doing. So I want to share the win real quick because they're seeing really, really great results.
That's awesome. Well, something you
So
care, man, Alvin.
yeah,
We both care, man. I think that's why we're together. We
yeah,
care about helping people, man. And I think the both of us have went down the rabbit hole of trying everything and anything. I'm willing to I always try to we want to push this whole industry forward by checking out everything. I think you and I have finally found something that we know that works. And I'm not saying it won't change a little bit because if it doesn't change, then it's not growing. But I
yeah.
think overall we understand now what we have to do to get people out of pain and why people are in pain. I mean, I think it's the first time we're sitting there saying, okay, lack of rotation is causing this, and our methods will get better and all of our methods, not just us, people that we learn from and the people that are heading this, they change a little bit every single time. They say it, listen, if we're exactly the same in 2 years, we have done nothing.
Mhm.
It's going to get a little bit better each time and a little bit more efficient each time. But I think overall, anybody that's into doing what we do understands that it is it. This is really the secret of perpetual youth. It is. It's the fountain of youth. It's Cocoon. I don't know if you ever watched that. You're a younger guy, but Cocoon was where. Did you ever watch Cocoon? The
Yeah,
movie Cocoon.
yeah.
It's where all they had this. Okay, that's a whole nother.
I got you.
But yeah,
All right, Michael. Really good call today.
all right, man.